welcome back to another episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, the podcast all around enterprise resource planning and how it fits into the modern world of business. And this week, we have finally done it. We always say that we should do these and we always kind of miss the boat or whatever, but we're recording this pretty much straight after the release of Acumatica 2024 R2. And we said this when we started the podcast almost 2 years ago, that we would hit these dates in the calendar and we'd do a special podcast around new updates and new versions of ERP. We've missed every single one, but that was all stopped with today's episode. So we have the release notes and we've gone through, we've had a look, and we're going to pick out and have a little discussion on 2 or 3 of our favourite ones. I've picked out 2 or 3, and Nirav is joining me once again with his couple. So are you excited about this one, Nirav?
I am. I'm really excited about it. I think there's some legitimate, improvements here that move mountains for some industries. Where a lot of ERPs fall short. Acumatica has found the gap, listened to customers, and essentially inserted additional functionality into the footprint of the product to make the product, really user friendly at the end of the day. I think all publishers now going to the cloud are doing this. They have multiple major releases per year. I see Acumatica though, some of their changes and updates they're doing to the product year after year are quite significant bumps, and customers are getting a lot of value for the additional enhanced functionality that they're getting. So, which is really cool to see from my perspective, especially if you're an Acumatica customer. I mean, they're seeing they're hearing the issues you're reporting to them, and then they are pushing that into standard product. And this release is no different. I would say there's a lot of really good new functionality that's being introduced here. They're still working out some things from a deployment perspective. I tried to get my hands on a 24R2 release through my hosted Acumatica instance. I couldn't really quite get that converted or upgraded up, but we have access to the release notes and want to share some our personal favorites, if you will. There's a ton in here. If there's something that we've missed and you want us to kind of review and expand on it, let us know. I'm more than happy to kind of talk to you about that, via email or a separate conversation. But this is exciting. They have some really good things that have been, now I wouldn't say issues, because there's always a kind of workarounds to these things, right? But where customers have commonly created maybe a customization, or they have just by way of the solution, just kind of dealt with it, right? And did maybe a manual process somewhere outside the system. And there's some really, really fun ways that they've enhanced the product. So I'm excited to dive right in.
Yeah, I really like this. And I always like that there's always something for someone. Now, we know that there's multiple different editions of Acumatica. And the nice thing is there's specific new updates for specific editions. And then you've got some kind of general ones as well. But there's always going to be something for someone. And what I like is it's chocked full of new features, but it's not like it's just growing fat and like dumping more and more features into something. It's often a tweak to an existing process or filling in a gap that might be missing. And as you said, you might be in a position where you've got some kind of custom code or some kind of customization because that gap was there. Well, looking through some of these notes, you might find that you can drop that customization because it's now native, and if it's part of the part of your setup, then you kind of get it for free, don't you, really? So it's nice to be able to get away from some of these customizations. So, good. So let's have a look. Also, while we're going to scroll down, we're not going to go through the whole thing. Obviously, it's 200 pages long, so that would be like a 4-hour episode. But as Nirav said, if there's something you see in this content, you're like, oh, what does it say about that? Then yeah, let us know. Drop it in the comments. Reach out to us on email, and we can definitely have a look. So we've highlighted some of the ones that we like the look of. So we're going to just step through them. So Nirav, let's take us to this first one. I can see prepayment invoices for sales orders.
Yeah, that one's a good one, right? So let's jump right in there.
So prepayment invoices for sales orders, I really like this. So as it says, in certain countries where a company requests a prepayment for sales order, they must record taxes on the received prepayment. To meet these requirements in Acumatica ERP, users can create prepayment invoices containing the same items as the particular sales order. Prepayment invoices include the taxes calculated based on the prepayment amount. A user can create a prepayment invoice directly from sales order. Alternatively, a prepayment invoice has been created manually. The user can link it to a sales order. So I really like this from a customer point of view, and from a business safeguard point of view, especially if you've got customers that are cash only, and you want a better method of tracking that prepayment, as it were. So if you've got customers that are like pro forma, it was always quite difficult, wasn't it? You'd have to, there's a few ways of doing it. You would have to kind of, if you had the ability to print a pro forma invoice, that would kind of serve as a formal invoice. Or if you couldn't do that, often I found that what we had to do was print an order confirmation, as long as the order confirmation had prices on it, and kind of persuade the customer to tell their finance team that, yes, this is legit. You can pay against an order confirmation. It was always a little bit kind of amateur, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I like this. I like this one.
Yeah, this is good because, prepayments in the sales order world is very, very common, especially now. Let's say you have a customer that, hasn't paid on time. So before you sell to them, you're going to require, hey, I need 50% up front before we go ahead and, ship you the product. It could be maybe I need 50% at signing the order, giving me the PO, and then I need 25% when I start manufacturing, right? And then I need another, 25% at the time of shipping. So this is really handy where you could create these multiple prepayments, and a lot of ERPs don't do multiple prepayments. So I'm interested to play around with this a little more, but essentially, from this screenshot that we could see here in this UI, that right through a sales order, we have the payments option, and now you have a create prepayment invoice. And you could create as many as you need, essentially, right, is my assumption here. And what Acumatica will do, because Acumatica is GAAP compliant, is going to hold that prepayment invoice dollars in like a deferred revenue bucket, or commonly known as advanced customer payments, right, or something like that. And hold that there until you deliver the final goods. And when you deliver the final goods on the sales order, it'll start recognizing the percentages of revenue that needs to go on your P&L according to that delivery pattern, right? So this is really helpful, I think, because if you do like prepayments, but you're not like a full job shop, this is really common, like in a projects-oriented environment where they do progress billing, milestone billing. But if you don't need that whole project functionality, ERPs generally fall short. Like you can't do multiple prepayments on the sales order side. So this is really nice, I think, because this expands that whole kind of concept. Like we're not a true project manufacturer, but we collect multiple prepayments on our orders. There are maybe direct sales to customers. So now we have the ability to do that with this enhanced functionality in 24R2, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, and the same goes for the different methods of doing like a discount on the sales line. You can either put it in as an actual fixed amount, or a percentage of the total order value. So it's nice, especially if you are in that position where you're doing like 50% upfront. Maybe you want to protect at least your cost of goods sold and at least get that covered. Just whack in like a 50%, 60%, whatever that happens to be. Yeah, really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of scanning through here, right? I like how they have this new create prepayment box. Let me see if I get this here. This create prepayment invoice box is really nice now that they have right here on the option, right? We keep coming down here. You could create it by amount, right? You could create it by amount here, or you could create it by percentage, which I think is really nice for customers, right? To do it that way.
Yeah.
So, because oftentimes you're going to get, where customer says, well, I need a $500 prepayment, or it's going to be a 20% prepayment, right? As you're working through the deal. And then the payment gets applied, right? So you'll see both the prepayment and the payments they get, and the linking of the prepayment invoice directly to the sales order. It's just kind of like a one-stop place. You see everything, all together, that you don't see a separation. You don't have to go to all of these different spots around in the system.
And I'm really thinking ahead with the ability to link it after the fact means that your AR team can take a payment from a customer, not knowing like what it's for in terms of which sales order. It means that at least your finance team haven't got to go digging through all of these sales orders, thinking about which one to apply this 50% to. They can just take a lump sum payment, which will then show on the customer's account, and then the customer service team or the sales team can then see that and then apply it to an open sales order. They can link it straight to it, and that will update the total paid and unpaid balance to that. So I like that. I'm thinking ahead of, different teams being able to still do the process. And if there is that separation, then once it's posted, you can still come in and link. And as we see there, unlink if we've
unlink, exactly. You've got the unlink option here. Yeah.
Really good.
So it's really good. I think this is it was a much needed functionality, and this opens the door, blows the door wide open for a lot of other customers that aren't projects oriented, but they do some sort of progress billing directly on sales orders. Which I think is the nature of our business now, right? I mean, prepayments are huge from an order standpoint. So that's great. Let's kind of scroll back up to the top here.
Good. Number one done then. What's our second one here?
Now this is like, drum roll, please. This is so huge. I know you're geeking about this. You're geeking about this, Peter. You really like this. You really like this one, man. Let's jump right into it. This is like, this like so many companies could use this, I feel like, right out of the gate.
I love the way it just says improvements to the receiving of items. No, this is like brilliant. This is the greatest thing ever. I'm sure there's loads of people out there that know the pain of something posting in an ERP system incorrectly, normally done by a different department that don't know the impact of posting something incorrectly. And for this one, its whole idea of this is about receipting in of goods. Now, most, as you receipt in, actually posts that. It affects your inventory. It puts physical stock into your inventory. It would therefore impact your inventory valuation of your business. So it's a pain when someone books in a whole shipment incorrectly. Like they booked in the entire purchase order instead of one line item on it. And then you've got to try and work out the correct way of doing the reversal of that. And it can be an absolute nightmare. And, it's always kind of been a bit weird that we allow, maybe you have temp staff in your warehouse that have been given a gun, and you've kind of implemented a really nice WMS system that means you scan this and then you scan this. That's all you need to do. Well, that can also be quite dangerous because if they're scanning away and let's just book everything in, it's a nightmare. So this is really nice. It's a simple little checkbox in the purchase orders preferences. Nirav has circled there at the bottom, verify receipts before release. So if you scroll down, there should be a little screenshot of what happens. So beforehand, when we were doing a purchase receipt, it will say release. It would be a little green box that says release receipt or something. With this checkbox enabled, you can actually see it says confirm receipt. So what this feature now does is it allows like your procurement leader, your procurement team, or your goods in clerk to confirm that it's been correctly receipted before it then releases and posts the inventory into stock. So it's this separation. It just allows a little bit of a check before actual any postings happen in the system. What do you think of that one then?
Yeah, it's fantastic. For the same reasons you just mentioned, incorrect receiving that happens, right? Being able to, verify the receipt before you actually take ownership of it, right? Before you create journal entries in the system and all that type of good stuff. But catching mistakes is number one. But a lot of industries need this. This is the way they do business, right? They have what's called first article inspection, where they need to be able to inspect inventory when it comes in. So acknowledge they received it, inspect it, but not take ownership of it because they have an opportunity to send it back. So, maybe you don't get fully invoiced for it until you give them the final number that you're receiving in. So, yeah, this is huge because it creates that separation, adds an additional layer of inventory control, right? Which is nice, especially if you do high volume, or let's say you receive in gold, for example, right? You want to count the gold, or let's say you're receiving silver or something. You want to be able to make sure you're receiving the right amount and not over what you want. Otherwise, right, you're going to have an issue with your liability. But it's a really nice feature. I always see almost every customer is asking for this nowadays. Like, so can we receive in before we receive in? Can we do a check before we actually hit our perpetual inventory or before we hit the financials? And now this is a great way to do it. I do want to preference this though. This is available. This will be available in 24R2, but only if you have the warehouse management module, because it's part of the warehouse management process. You see receive and put away scanning here. That's part of when you have anything scanning, especially if you're using the mobile app in Acumatica, that's part of the warehouse management module. So even though you have inventory management, it won't automatically activate. At least from my understanding, you need to have the warehouse management module in order to make sure this is activated. But this is fantastic. I can see almost every company using this to ensure accurate inventory, because it's a pain. It's really a pain when you have like a wrong receipt quantity, and now you got to go back and undo everything, right? And and you may get to a certain point where you can't undo it. You have to just do a negative adjustment because you've already like vouchered that invoice, essentially. And it's a headache for everybody involved. And this way we could eliminate it with this confirmed receipt.
Yeah, so it is an absolute pain because then you're like, if I negatively adjust the stock out, what's the impact of that? It's going to be an unlinked transaction in a general ledger. You're going to look back, you're going to get audited in a year's time. And these auditors will, they say it's a random choice of what they pick out to have a look at. They go for these odd things. They see these where it's like a $0 value invoice or a manual adjustment of stock. Like, tell me about that. Especially if it's unlinked. So the other thing I want to say about this is so when you enable this, there's a secondary checkbox underneath which says to include on this purchase receipt anything with zero quantity booked in. So keep 0 lines. So the idea of this is if they're booking in a purchase order, maybe your procurement team want to know that a particular item wasn't received at all, like none of it. So you might have, you're buying in like 20 laptops and 20 printers, and you actually receive in 19 laptops. That's fine. It's nice to know 19 out of 20 were received. But you might not remember, if this is a long lead time product, you might not remember 3 or 4 months down the line that was also another item, say 20 printers on that purchase order as well. And you might want to know that. You might want to know that none were received. So that's what that screenshot there is showing. Received quantity at the top says received quantity 1, but the second line underneath says that this was also on the same purchase order, but none were received. So it's nice to know. The only thing I will caveat this with, Acumatica won't let you release this with any 0 quantity lines on it. It will just come up saying it has to be greater than 0. So you would have to select any zero lines, remove them from the purchase receipt, and then it will allow you to release it. So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll enhance this and allow you to at least post it, because you're posting zero. It's not
posting zero.
Anything.
Yeah.
But it might be nice to know the history of this, that maybe you want to look back and see that you've got a particular vendor that often does lots of split shipments where certain items, none of it turns up. We'll see what they do with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the other consideration is if you post that zero line, it's a transaction. So may not want that extra zero line transaction from the Acumatica standpoint when you're looking at your numbers. But no, you're absolutely right. Maybe they might come up with a better solution around that. But this is huge. I think this is a game changer. This is a game changer for a lot of companies. And I think it's going to help them become a lot more accurate in the purchasing process. So really happy to see this. Really happy to see this.
And the other thing that comes with this is a KPI card. So on the receiver clerk side, you can have a tile that says number of receipts, and it will drill down straight to that. So it's adding a little bit of work, but I think for the work that it adds onto like a procurement person, it's worth it to ensure that you don't have incorrect receipts being posted. So, one click, straight to take you straight there. Click release, done. Yeah,
done. Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Really nice. Really nice. Good work, Acumatica. I think that was really nice.
Yep. Cool. So back up to the contents. Here we go. Let's see what we've got. What's the next one on the list?
Enhanced linking of production orders. I really like this. I'm a manufacturing guy. You know that, Peter, through and through. This is really nice because, let me close that out of here. A lot of production is dependent, right? Manufacturing is dependent on demand, right? And then the components are demand for other production orders to be created, right? Especially if you have like a make to order type of environment, you need to allocate children production orders to parent production orders. And Acumatica has rolled out this really thorough pegging of production orders through the manufacturing process related to sales demand, to production demand, to component demand, and putting it all together. A lot of times in manufacturing, you get lost. Like, okay, we're making this component, but what parent production order does it really go to, right? And it's not very clear in many cases, especially if you're like a discrete manufacturer and you don't maybe do reservations or anything like that. But now Acumatica has come out with this ability to display all the dependencies of a production order in a single view. So, what they're saying here is production managers had to select each material line in the production order to see as children, which was inconvenient, time consuming. So to address this issue, there's a new related production tab on the production order that's been added. And this tab will display top-level production, its intermediate parent production orders, its intermediate child production orders, and other related production orders that make up the complete family of production that's necessary for this one top-level item. I mean, that is huge, right? So at any given point, you could tell, if we just look at the screenshot, we could see here, right, what they need to make, what's remaining, and what's complete. Of all my children production orders, I could also see, right, I could see the product production order right here, which is really nice, all related up here to my main production order card. I mean, all this view in one area, right? I'm not having to hunt and peg, I need to look for this particular production order because I think it's part of this particular parent production order, so on and so forth. Right?
Yeah. Think of this from a cost control as well. So you could be able to the link between sub-assembly orders to the actual finished good, you can much better track the cost, because there might be separate production orders. You might be doing it on separate production orders. You might be doing, building the components first, which have their own BOM and their own set of materials, and then you make them to then build like the finished good. You might want to be able to track better the exact cost of this going into this exact production order of the finished good. You're going to get a lot more accurate reporting on the costings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this was huge. Follow with ERP. I think with when you have so much operational data that's happening in the system, if you have to hunt and peck for that data, you're just wasting a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
It just becomes time consuming and it becomes a headache. But this on the manufacturing floor to me is a game changer, because you can really quickly identify production orders that are falling behind, that are, something's wrong with them. You could relate delays, right? Relay them upstream, relay them up to your customer service team, relay them up to your foreman to a different department. Like, this production order is going to be delayed, right? So now they could change and adjust due dates for future orders or whatever demand that's looking out there for. So this is, I think, really, really nice. And then along with that is the enhanced numbering schema. So not only is it possible to link the production orders, right, as a parent-child type of relationship, but starting in 24R2, you have unique numbering sequences that you can provide to keep kind of this uniform numbering possibility. So what you were seeing here is a new flag that says add suffix for production assemblies. So you could create a production order for a top level item, and Acumatica will know when you create a child production order for that, it'll keep the same main production order number, but then just add a suffix to the subassembly production order. So if you look at here, going back to the screenshot, you have this AM00108-001. Here's a child production order, AM00108-004. Right? It keeps that numbering schema kind of in a good relationship between this parent production order. And here, look, in this production order we're on, the main production order is AM000108000. We're on one of the children production orders, which is AM00108-002, and it's listing its parent-child, all these different production orders together. I mean, very clear, right? Very clear, and that's what we're aiming for here, which is nice. You don't get a whole separate number. You don't get a number that's AM0001946A2, right? And you're trying to figure out, okay, well, does that really relate to this production order? Does it not relate to this production order, right? Yeah. So I think you'll see that across the board. They've done it in, not here, but here's a really nice graphic that they put together where you have level 0, level 1, level 2, and how these different suffixes work. And it's automatic. The numbering system is automatic. Acumatica just picks it up. It's pretty intelligent that way, right?
I'm already thinking ahead here. Like, Nirav, we've had conversations about my business setup, and this would be perfect. Intercompany transactions where you might have the sub-assemblies, say level 2 sub-assemblies there in a factory in a certain country, that feeds into another country who does the level 1 sub-assemblies, and then it gets transferred to the level 0 finished good. Being able to do this linked production orders with easy to read suffixes across an intercompany setup in the same tenant, that would be huge. I would love that.
That's huge. Absolutely. Really nice. Nicely done here. Big win for Acumatica for doing this out of the box and providing this capability in 24R2. And then you got the allocation we talked about, right? You can kind of create through a production order, you can allocate purchase orders and things like that. You can link other production orders to it manually, which is really nice. From the standpoint of maintaining, especially you're a job shop, you're creating production orders all the time, and you want to go back and link them. So you could do that, generate your sub-assemblies, really, really fast, which is nice here. You have a worksheet now, just create production orders and generate the sub-assemblies for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to run it separately. It just knows based on the hierarchy that I need to generate the sub-assemblies for this automatically as well. Really nice. Again, well done by Acumatica. Always still kind of, you know, extends into projects as well. But yeah, I think the enhanced linking was really nice. So
yep.
Let's go back up to the top. Another one I really liked is this one. Improvements to the outside processing for purchasing visibility. And the reason why I like this, oftentimes when you do an outside process purchase order that's linked to a production order, there's this intermediary step that you have to do to essentially move that functional or service cost to the production order, which is a little bit, I thought, no value add to that step. Yeah. Basically, receiving the purchase order, this particular cost sits in like this bucket, receipt bucket, and then you got to move it to a production order. Really doesn't add any value, that one intermediary step. So now what they've done is actually added the ability, a couple different things here, is improve visibility of production order demand in the purchase order. So if we look at the purchase order, under the demand option, we have the ability to see the production order now. So it's linked, right? So it's telling us that we're linking the production order to the purchase order. Then what we have here as we go down here is as the purchase order comes in, the handling of this. So, right, you have a subcontracting source here, and through the production order, you could see the purchase order as well. So linked the other way as well. So now in the purchase, you see it linked here through the production order, which is really nice here. And then you decide when the purchase order is received in, do you want the purchase to automatically come in and get moved to the production order? That didn't appear, that wasn't there before. Yeah. That wasn't there before. So now you could go ahead and move that cost directly to the production order upon receipt, which is really nice. So it comes in and gets added. Here's the receipt, right? And goes straight away, becomes a move into the production order. You see the manufacturing batch number here. And then on the move, right, it's already happened. And the move transaction also links the purchase receipt, which is really nice. Yeah. Okay. So the move essentially is kind of going into WIP, so you're not having to do an extra step in the production process. Yeah. Right. So this is a really good improvement here. Yep. Also accounts for lot numbering and serial numbering here, which is really nice. You have a side panel that comes up here. So when you're on a production order, you see a side panel of production transactions and purchase history by production order. Yep. So, you know, really good kind of touches to this process. I think it's really helpful. A lot of manufacturing customers are really like that specific functionality.
I really like this because there seems to be a theme of linking things now, because it's almost like they're aware that business flows, it's all linked at some point. So when we look at like an order to cash flow, we know how it's linked. We know that, sales order gets raised, how it links to AR, it's pretty simple. But now they're starting to realize that as more and more parts of a business or more departments of a business are coming through and trying to maximize the power of an ERP, that also they have a requirement to link certain things together. So I really like that we can see better the integration of all the kind of separate parts that were separate beforehand. So that is a perfect example of being able to link purchase order side to production output, and especially for discrete manufacturing, where you are purchasing raw materials or subcomponents or whatever. And you might want to know exactly, I purchased this, but where did I then see that? When did I actually use that within my own manufacturing processes? It's really good.
Right. 100%, 100%. And if you could follow the breadcrumb, the audit trail, it makes analyzing that full transaction so much easier, right?
Yeah.
A lot of users spend a lot of time just clicking from one record to another record to another record to make sense of, well, how did this all kind of relate together? And this helps, right? When you could get these links already in place to really kind of focus in on your reporting, your BI reporting and things like this, because it just makes that so much easier at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, especially for manufacturers that will be, say, you're using the quality side of things and you're measuring scrap rates and things like that, and it might help you order, like, you know, when you're over ordering in terms of yield, the subcomponents, it might tighten that kind of stuff up, because at the moment it can be a little bit of a guessing game, isn't it? You know, you've got to order more material because of your historical scrap rates, but it's always a dark art to how much do I overorder. I think if this kind of stuff is linked, it's going to help tighten that and get, you know, more on the money, as it were.
Yeah, agreed. There's one other one I really like here. You know, there's a bunch here. If we just kind of quickly scan through here, just some changes to the report designer, improvements, detection of anomalies to GIs. GIs are great in the system. And Acumatica, as we know, real quick ways to create your own different type of screens, improvement in integration scenarios. There's a bunch of projects and construction type of improvements, but this one I really like. You know, we work in the retail e-commerce space often, but this Amazon returns and refunds, just going to quickly go into there. But the ability to go ahead and process returns that's happened in Amazon, right? The import of returns and refunds from your Amazon store into your Acumatica ERP. So this was a huge gap. You know, a lot of retailers do business on Amazon now, and you're able to now actually account for those returns and refunds in the ERP system and keep your financials real time, right? Which is really an important piece of this that didn't exist before. And Amazon doesn't release all their code right away. So, you know, Acumatica having this and being one of the first, I think, ERPs to jump on and create an Amazon connector and create all this Amazon functionality, which is huge. And you could see the benefit of this is the extension now into the returns process of Amazon. So 3 new fields added: seller fulfilled return type, marketplace fulfilled return type, and then refund reason code. So seller fulfilled return type, you get a specific return order type that's created called e-commerce return order. And then we have a marketplace fulfilled return. So marketplace means, like, if Amazon has fulfilled a return, you straight away just create a credit memo instead of it coming inside your organization. And then you have a refund return reason code, right? So which is really nice, kind of automates that whole Amazon return process. So really a great feature here. It just kind of a little small configuration, and then, you know, the Acumatica connector overall would just, you know, pass that data back and forth as necessary. So without getting into all this, it's you know, long time coming, and we're just going to see additional improvements from the Amazon connector, which is, by the way, a native connector that Acumatica has. So you know, anytime a publisher has a native connector, you're not using a third party, it always makes that integration a little tighter, right? Because you're not having to deal with all these different maybe API calls or you know, unnecessary type of mapping or whatnot, because it's already mapped over. So more we're going to see more and more of Amazon coming out, but this returns and refund process, in my eyes, is pretty big. So I wanted to just mention that to anyone that's using that connector. And
talking of integration, that next point is exactly that as well. Volume pricing and quantity rules in Shopify. This is a big one, especially for the people that want to kind of incentivize and move maybe their smaller customers over to a web shop. I know this is quite big when we're looking at customers, kind of assessing our customers, especially post-COVID. You're kind of looking at the people that maybe your business looks different after COVID. And this, I see the the idea now is that you can better have the granularity of pricing with price breaks. So this was a bit of an issue beforehand in terms of trying to handle price breaks. Now you can actually configure quantity rules that says, your volume breaks. You can put in, so the particular prices, how it increments, the maximum, and add as many different of these quantity price breaks as you want in the system. Before, to kind of handle this, you'd have to almost have separate shops for the different quantity and kind of hack it around and kind of jam it in the system to, at least from the Acumatica side, the Shopify side, you would have to use their kind of volume breaks to do it in there. Now you don't need to. That comes into Acumatica. It's native. We already have done a podcast episode about the integration to e-commerce anyway. This just enhances it and takes it to the next level. So there you go. That screenshot there is a perfect example. Creating a price worksheet. You can see the inventory. It's the same item. A nice jar of cherry jam. But we can put in the break quantity now. So we can load in break quantities, the price, and then transfer of data that just maps it and pushes it straight into
all this gets mapped right here. And this is the Shopify table, right? So you'll see a direct correlation, like, you have break number 1, minimum of 1 is 45.15, right? And then you have the first break that's a Shopify sees is break of 5, 43.45. Now that maps over very nicely into Acumatica as orders come in, right? So you could essentially, the goal here is to keep Acumatica as the single source of truth, the system of record. So you maintain your price breaks and Acumatica, and they just get synchronized into Shopify. Prior to this, you had to manually do this. On both sides, right? There was no price break integration, which is nice. And this is another one of those that we talked about on the Amazon side, that this is a native integration by Acumatica. So when they create this, they make it very tight. They make it very easy to use and understand without doing a whole bunch of biggity bop mapping and all these other things, when you use third-party solutions. So Acumatica did a great job here. And I'm glad they rolled out this feature, because this is getting increasingly important in the retail e-commerce space.
I always think that the single source of truth, that term, it's always something that we strive for, but we never actually get there. There's never a single source of truth. So we can say Acumatica, brilliant ERP, is the single source of truth. Apart from if you want volume price breaks. There's lots of these kind of things that says, well, I have to manage that separately. It's like, is that genuinely, can you actually say that's a single source of truth then? No, it's like 95%.
Right.
But this is just another kind of gap, isn't it, that's now answered, that does actually get us like closer to the single source of truth term.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the goal. I think those were some of the things that I wanted to go through that I thought were, for me, kind of, definitely groundbreaking in this 24R2 release. There's a ton of other stuff in here too, that Acumatica has, corrected or updated or created new functionality for. So definitely encouraging, all those companies and prospects or customers looking at, what is this new update? How does Acumatica do this? Release notes are out there. We could probably put a link to this on our podcast. When you look at it, we'll put a link to this down there so you have access to it. But all in all, I think this was definitely a worthwhile update, improvement for this R2 release that's coming out.
Yep. And as soon as they cave in and give you this R2 release, then we can actually show it. And I really want to see the new UI. The only thing that isn't mentioned in here specifically, there's not a part that talks about the new user interface. It has changed.
Right.
It's a little bit nicer. You've got a nicer kind of side panel. Things are in a nicer area where they used to be hidden in tabs. You can actually put in certain kind of things that you care about into like an extra panel, tiled panel.
Yeah.
So it would be nice when we can actually have R2, we can demo we can showcase some of these and actually try pushing, a multi-tree production order through and show off the new UI as well. So
absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Okay, as Nirav there scrolls through the contents, if you saw anything in there that we haven't highlighted, let us know and we can dive into that particular page, have a look what it's all about, and dive a little bit deeper into that. But those were the ones that I think stood out for us, especially in manufacturing, retail, distribution, and kind of the handling of inventory. They're the ones I think are probably the biggest hitters for 2024 R2. Good. Looking forward to being able to showcase it. And looking forward to this episode going out. It's, what is it? October 19th. I think I'm going to edit it and get it out as soon as I can. So hopefully it's only a few days away. Future Pete is the editor. I know we often say about the that's the editor's issue. He can deal with that. That's this guy. It's the future of this guy. So I think he knows what he's going to be doing for the rest of this weekend. But I'm glad we got there. We finally got to do a release.
This was fun. This was really fun for me. And seeing some of this new functionality coming out and diving deep into it. I thought it was great. So when we do play around with it now, we have a good leg up on what this functionality is supposed to do. So really happy about it, and really excited to show 24 R2 here very, very soon. So stay tuned.
Good. Thank you very much, Nirav. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as ever, I will catch you. Well, I'll catch you next week. Listeners and viewers will catch us in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to wait. So yes, enjoy, and I will speak to you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.